Part 14. But up on the peach itself, everyone was still happy and excited. "I wonder where we'll finish up this time," said the earthworm. "Who cares?" they answered. "Seagulls always go back to the land sooner or later." Up and up they went, high above the highest clouds, the peach swaying gently from side to side as it floated along. "Oh, wouldn't it be perfect time for a little music?" the ladybug asked. "How about it, old green grasshopper?" "Oh, with pleasure, dear lady," the old green grasshopper answered, bowing from the waist. "Hooray! He's going to play for us!" they cried. And immediately the whole company sat themselves down in a circle around the old green musician, and the concert began. From the moment that the first note was struck, the audience became completely spellbound. And as for James, never had he heard such beautiful music as this. In the garden at home on summer evenings, he had listened many times to the sound of grasshoppers chirping in the grass, and he'd always liked the noise that they made. But this was a different kind of noise altogether. This was real music, chords, harmonies, tunes, and all the rest of it. And what a wonderful instrument the old green grasshopper was playing on. It was like a violin. It was almost exactly as though he were playing upon a violin. The bow of the violin, the part that moved, was his back leg. The strings of the violin, the part that made the sound, was the edge of his wing. He was using only the top of his back leg, the thigh, and he was stroking this up and down against the edge of his wing with incredible skill, sometimes slowly, sometimes fast, but always with the same easy flowing action. It was precisely the way a clever violinist would have used his bow, and the music came pouring out and filled the whole blue sky around them with magic melodies. When the first part was finished, everyone clapped madly, and Miss Spider stood up and shouted, "Bravo! Encore! Please give us some more." "Did you like it, James?" the old green grasshopper asked, smiling at the small boy. "Oh, I loved it," James answered. "It was beautiful. It was just as though you had a real violin in your hands." "A real violin?" the old green grasshopper cried. "Good heavens! Ha! I like that. Oh, dear boy, I am a real violin. It is part of my own body." "But do all grasshoppers play their music on violins the same as you do?" James asked him. "No," he answered, "not all. If you want to know, I happen to be a short-horned grasshopper. I have two short feelers coming out of my head. Can you see them? There they are. They are quite short, aren't they? That's why they call me a short horn. And we short horns are the only ones who play our music in the violin style, using a bow. My long-horned relatives, the ones who have long, curvy feelers coming out of their heads, make their music simply by rubbing the edges of their two top wings together. They are not violinists. They are wing rubbers, and a rather inferior noise these wing rubbers produce, too, if I may say so. It sounds more like a banjo than a fiddle." "How fascinating this all is," cried James. "And to think that up until now, I never even wondered how a grasshopper made his sounds." "My dear young fellow," the old green grasshopper said gently, "there are a whole lot of things in this world of ours that you haven't started wondering about yet. And where, for example, do you think I keep my ears?" "Your ears? Why, in your head, of course." Everyone burst out laughing. "You mean you don't even know that?" cried the centipede. "Try again," the old green grasshopper said, smiling. "You can't possibly keep them anywhere else." "Oh, can't I? Well, I give up. Where do you keep them?" "Right here," the old green grasshopper said. "One on each side of my tummy." "It's not true." "Of course it's true. What's so peculiar about that? You ought to see where my cousins, the crickets and the katydids, keep theirs." "Where do they keep them?" "In their legs. One in each front leg just below the knee." "You mean you didn't know that either?" the centipede said scornfully. You're joking, James said. Nobody could possibly have his ears in their legs. Why not? Because it's ridiculous, that's why. You know what I think is ridiculous? The centipede said, grinning as usual. I don't mean to be rude, but I think it's ridiculous to have ears on the side of one's head. It certainly looks ridiculous. You ought to take a peek in the mirror someday and see for yourself. Pest! Cried the earthworm. Why must you always be so rude and rambunctious to everyone? You ought to apologize to James at once. Chapter 25. James didn't want the earthworm and the centipede to get into another argument, so he said quickly to the earthworm, Tell me, do you play any kind of music? No, but I do other things, some of which are really quite extraordinary, the earthworm said, brightening. Such as what? Asked James. Well, the earthworm said, next time you stand in a field or in a garden and look around you, then just remember this. Every grain of soil upon the surface of the land, every tiny little bit of soil that you can see, has actually passed through the body of an earthworm during the last few years. Isn't that wonderful? It's not possible, said James. Oh, my dear boy, it is a fact. You mean you actually swallow soil? Like mad, the earthworm said proudly. In one end and out the other. What's the point? What do you mean, what's the point? Well, why do you do it? We do it for the farmers. It makes the soil nice and light and crumbly so that the things will grow well in it. If you really want to know, the farmers couldn't do without us. We are essential. We are vital. So it is only natural that the farmer should love us. He loves us even more, I believe, than he loves the ladybug. The ladybug, said James, turning to look at her. Do they love you too? I'm told they do, the ladybug answered modestly, blushing all over. In fact, I understand that in some places, the farmers love us so much that they go out and buy live ladybugs by the sackful and take them home and set them free in their fields. They're very pleased when they have lots of ladybugs in their fields. Why? James asked. Because we gobble up all the nasty little insects that are gobbling up all the farmers' crops. It helps enormously, and we ourselves don't charge a penny for our services. Well, I think you're wonderful, James told her. Can I ask you one special question?